want each of you to think for a moment. Why am I here today? What thing during this day, this week, this month, this year, or your whole life has led you here today, listening to this talk? Some years ago, my parents showed me a video which talked about life. It tried to explain this as if it was a race. In this case, we do not all start from the same starting line, but we all try to finish at the same place, to reach our objective in life. But which is that objective? Where do we need to arrive? How? From my own point of view, reaching our objectives depends on two factors. In the first place, opportunities. According to Cambridge Dictionary, an opportunity is defined as an occasion or situation that makes it possible something you want to do or have to do, or the possibility of doing it. But, as the definition explains it, an opportunity presents you a possible situation. For it to become real, it is needed a second factor: action. If you want to reach your goals and finish your own race, it is important to act, to get out of your comfort zone, dare to live, and take advantage of the opportunities life presents you. But, to understand this, it is important to know that opportunities change according to the place of birth and the different possibilities which are given there to you according to many factors. This might be the economic condition, your social position, your family support, the place, city or country where you live, your physical appearance, and many others. In the video, there were several participants who were going to take part in the race. But before this started, a man made some statements. If those statements apply to someone, they have to give 2 steps forward. If your parents are still married, please give 2 steps forward. If you had access to a private education, please give 2 steps forward. If you have never worried about which was going to be your next meal, please give 2 steps forward. These were some of the statements the man made. The race was called the race of privilege. According to Cambridge Dictionary, privilege is an advantage that only one person or group of people has. This was definitely a race where privileged and not privileged people ran. They all took part in the race, but the privileged ones had a great advantage. Some years ago, when I started secondary school, I started to think about my life when I grew up. At the beginning, I was so excited about how college was going to be like and started thinking about the idea of studying abroad. Sometime later, I watched a TV show called Gilmore Girls. In this, one of the main characters was Roy Gilmore, a teenager whose dream was entering Harvard. When I watched this, I started looking for information about this institution. Harvard is one of the most prestigious colleges around the world, counting with best education, surrounded with the most professional and intelligent people all around the world. Entering there would almost guarantee you a position in the business or scientific elite. When I knew this sort of college existed, I remember I thought, that's it, I'm going to Harvard. I started looking for scholarships, the exams I would have to take, or even better ways to improve my request. At that moment, I was so sure that was going to be my future. But one day, when I spoke with my parents, my dreams flew away. They told me entering Harvard was almost impossible, even less taking into account that I was from another country, so it was going to be much more difficult for me. I mean, it was not just the fact that I lived in Argentina, but imagining I got into Harvard, it was impossible for my parents to pay for it. I instantly got frustrated. I didn't understand why, if I was so desperate to get into the college, I couldn't. Just because of the fact that I lived in Argentina and not in the United States as Roy Gilmore, who also had 2 rich grandparents who paid for her education. But time later, I realized it was not impossible. It was just really hard. It required me long hours of study, long hours which I prefer to spend hanging out with friends or worrying about other stuff. So, it is important to be clear about your goals. but it is also important to have predisposition to achieve them and know the sacrifices you'd have to make to arrive there. Was Harvard that important so as to leave my house when I was 18? To spend a great time of my adolescence studying? I wasn't sure. Nevertheless, I know I'm privileged too. I may never get into Harvard, but the difference between me and Rory Gilmore is really small compared to the difference between me and a person who might not have access to a good education, a warm house, or even a daily meal. I am not trying to upset anyone here. What I'm trying to say with this is that it was going to be really hard if my objective was entering Harvard, but almost impossible for a person who didn't have at least a good education. According to experts, there might be several psychological effects in relation to the place where you are born. Let's say, for example, your parents are divorced. As we know, family is the nucleus of our society. This, together with school, is in charge of our primary education. It is supposed to be a place where we feel confident, full, a refuge where we are accepted for who we are, regardless of our economic, cultural, intellectual, religious, or sexual preference. But not everyone feels this way in their family. Jennifer McIntosh, a clinical psychologist and family therapist, explained that alternating between separated parents causes relationship problems in 60% of the children younger than 18 months all around the world. These children grow up having alarming levels of emotional insecurity and a low ability to control their strong emotions during youth and adulthood. Now let's see another example: children with alcoholic parents. According to an investigation made by the Child and Youth Psychiatry Service of the Hospital Clínico Barcelona, parents' alcoholism is a factor that multiplies by 4 the risk of presenting mental pathologies in their children between the ages of 7 and 16 years old. The most frequent pathologies that these children develop are anxiety disorders, attention deficit, hyperactivity, enuresis, and depression, which are manifested through phobias. This, in turn, affects their school performance and their social relationships. So, those which have less opportunities will have to make an extra effort to achieve their goals and arrive to the end of the race. It is not fair, and nobody said it was easy. There are some that are called the privileged ones, which will run this race with more advantages, always being conscious that more advantages were given to them, and will have the responsibility to take advantage of them. And those which were not that lucky will also have to run. But what is important, they will have to be conscious that they have done nothing to be born where they were, but they can do something to change that situation. So now I want each of you to ask yourself, which is my objective in life? Do I want to be happy? What is happiness for me? Where would I find this happiness? Once you have answered this, I want each of you to take advantage of the opportunities life presents you. Some will have more than others, but what is important, you will have to fight and try with all your effort to arrive to the end of the race. When I first watched this video, I remember I didn't understand it. What was trying to explain me, how unfair life was, that it was going to be impossible for me if my objective in life was entering Harvard. But then I understood. It was not impossible. It was just really hard, maybe more difficult for ones than for others. But if I have clear which my objectives are, I will have to fight, maybe more than others. But that is life, and I'm going to take advantage of my opportunities. Thank you very much.